rock star welcome in Cairo. After Tunisia, he'll be due in Tripoli, where he could even cross paths with the French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, reportedly to make a visit there. In Egypt, he both slammed Israel while bluntly stating that the Syrian people do not believe in Assad. Until now, Muslim allegiances were often depicted as a crude rivalry between the Sunni Saudis and the Shiite Iranians. How brightly does Turkey's star now shine in the region in light of the events that have taken place over the past year? And what's in it for Ankara? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about Erdogan on tour. And joining us from Istanbul, reporter Mustafa Akyol. Thank you for being with us, columnist for Star and Hurriyet, and author of Islam Without Extremes, A Muslim Case for Liberty. Thank you for being with us. In our Paris studios, Gil Mihaly, columnist for Israeli daily newspaper Yediot Aharonot. Also with us, Merve Ozdem Irkigran, who teaches at France's prestigious Sciences Po Political Science Institute. Thank you for being with us. And also the author, I should say, of In French, for now, right? Of Turkey's politics vis-a-vis Iraq since 2003. And Eli Abdelhey, who is on the executive committee of the Lebanese forces, part of the March 14th coalition in the opposition in Lebanon. Thank you for being with us here on the France 24 debate. Now, in Egyptian liberal daily Al Waft, columnist Mohammed Amin this Wednesday writes, "Lend us an Erdogan for a month." On the France 24 debate Facebook page, we've gotten a lot of comments. Sally writes, "I think that the Turkish prime minister has proved himself to be a leader of the Arab world. I do respect this guy a lot since the events in Gaza." We'll look at more of your comments later. Not everyone, though, we should mention, enamored by the visit on Twitter. Nada Wassef from Egypt writes, "People, stop getting emotional about politics. Erdogan isn't coming here for moral support. He's here for econ/politics/PR objectives. Wake up," she says. Let's look at Nada's question and begin there. Merve, what's the agenda for Turkey in a trip like this one?
Actually, the importance of Turkey in the region is getting more and more, is getting bigger, actually. Just after the elections, the position of Recep Tayyip Erdogan was more important than the other mandates, previous mandates. So the role of Turkey in this region is becoming more and more important for the other parts of the world as well as Europe, as European Union and the United States. I think that if Turkey is today is capable to show this new agenda towards the Middle East, towards the Arab Spring, I think the U.S. government has as well, and the European Union, I think, have their consent on this policy.
I must say, Mustafa Akyol, it's a heavy symbol, isn't it, that Erdogan makes a big speech on foreign policy in Cairo, same place where Barack Obama made his speech back in 2009.
Exactly, and I think there's a point there. I think one key thing about Erdogan is that he's one of the very few politically, democratically elected leaders in the Middle East. Most countries in the Middle East, as we know, are dictatorships, although some of those dictators are now toppling in the Arab Spring. And Turkey, as a country which has reconnected with its Muslim identity, has softened its secularism but not abandoned it, and also which is an economic success story. I think Turkey has become more interesting for the Arabs since the AKP came to power, Erdogan's party came to power. And also there's, of course, the stance on Israel. And I think on the Israel issue too, I think Turkey is giving an important message. And the message is this, like, in the Middle East, there has been two camps, opposing camps on Israel. There were either people like Nasser, leaders, who got very popular by opposing Israel, but opposing Israel in a very radical way, in the sense of attacking Israel or denying Israel's right to exist. And there has been other moderate leaders who had some popularity in the West, but who did not have popularity among their people. And I think Turkey is now pointing out to a third way, being the example of the third way, which is, while is respecting Israel's right to exist, but condemning its occupation and some of its brutal policies against the Palestinians, and also by itself being a beacon of democracy in the Middle East, a democracy which connects with the aspirations of its pious Islamic society as well. So in that sense, I think both in its policy on Israel and in its internal democracy, Turkey is becoming a model, maybe not a model, but at least a source of inspiration for the Arabs who, especially with the Arab Spring, are looking forward to create democracies in their own countries.
I want to ask you, Ali Abdelhey, what's the street cred, if you will, of Erdogan in Beirut these days?
Discredit, you say?
The street credibility of.
Okay. Look, of course, I agree with you that Turkey is trying to play a regional role in Middle East, and they have, no one deny the potential they have in all point of views in the region right now. But in Lebanon, let's say any action taken to stabilize the region coming from friendly countries, I think they are very welcome. However, we must pay attention that in the region we have a lot of sensitivities. So it's not very easy, I think, for Turkey to play without any risk in this region. Everyone knows what Americans have let's say what occurred to the states and in
right,
Iraq.
So there are definite pitfalls. We're going to look at those pitfalls in a moment. Let's look at some of the things that happened on that trip to Cairo during his visit. Erdogan getting a guided tour of the Defense Ministry, headquarters for the head of the country. Someone, General Tantawi, who is Field Marshal Tantawi, who's under a lot of criticism from those that have been demonstrating in Tahrir Square, the head of the armed forces, again, giving him a warm welcome.
That man is Field Marshal Ahmed Ismail. He was the Minister of Defense during the October War of 1973, the war to liberate Sinai.
And Erdogan, in a speech later in the day, insisting on the need for justice, equality, and the rights of each individual. Now, top of the list, among those thwarting those rights, according to Erdogan, in his speech, not Syria, but Egypt's neighbor to the right.
There are some countries in our region that will not be able to read and see the changes that are taking place here. First among those is Israel. There is no doubt that we will not stay silent when faced with the obstruction of stability in the region. And I believe that standing hand in hand, we can establish peace in the region.
Gil Mihaly, Prime Minister Erdogan now talking about even entering Gaza by land from Egypt. Is he serious?
I have no idea. There were rumors about him visiting Gaza during his visit in Egypt, and finally he decided not to do it. I think he even said that he wishes to do it, that he dreams of doing it with Abu Mazen. But I think that at the current situation between the Palestinians of the West Bank, Ramallah, and the Hamas in Gaza, I think he understands that it'll go a little bit too far, and he wanted to make a public relations impact, but I think the Palestinians made him understand, and the Egyptians too, that it's going a bit too far, and that there are certain delicacies and certain complications that might be hurt. But there is the Erdogan question and the Turkish question. I think that Turkey is going back to the natural place that you can, in a very picturesque way, we can say that Ankara is finally taking back the place left empty by Constantinople, by Istanbul 1 century ago. And the Arab revolutions are undoing the Middle East that was done after the war of 1914-1918. So just like in the Balkans, you put the cover, but you can't change the geopolitics, you can't change the long tendencies of culture, of economy, of population. So things are going back to the natural place. Erdogan, which is not only a leader but also a media star, has this quality to add to the interests his personal touch. He's a master in public relations. So he's going a bit too far. He's a bit like Obama on the one hand or Ahmadinejad on the other hand. He makes words count a lot more than other gestures on real facts on the ground.
And how worried are Israelis?
They ask themselves this question because it is clear that the new strategic orientation of Turkey is normal and is even expected. As a regional respected leader, they cannot have high-profile relationship with Israel. And if you are also a good politician, you try to make the best profit of changing course. And we know that in the world, Israel bashing is a quick profit. I mean, you can't fail. Babies in Gaza are named Erdogan. So he's pushing things very, very far on the declaration level, on the gesture level. The question is, how far will Turkey go to follow Erdogan? And since, it's one of the only democracies in the Middle East, I would say that Erdogan is one of the only leaders in the Middle East that wasn't elected by 99.9% of his population, which means that Turkey is not a monolithic system, that even if Erdogan and his party are winning elections for 10 years, they can't do whatever they want. Even if the army is being defeated politically, he's still an actor to be considered. And there's a serious opposition in Turkey, and in 2, 3, or 5 years, we can find another Turkish prime minister, we can find another Turkish foreign policy, not on the fundamentals, but on the style. So what Israelis ask themselves, is it only a question of style, or will Erdogan go all the way, which means looking for provocation, sending battleship to escort flotillas and look for another clash.
Mustafa Akyol, will Erdogan put his money where his mouth is?
Well, I don't think that Erdogan will seek for further confrontations with Israel, although they claimed to, protect Turkish ships on the East Mediterranean and show more presence in the East Mediterranean. And I think to understand Erdogan, we should remember that Erdogan did not have a problem with Israel until 2008. Actually, in 2006, he visited Israel. There were many trade agreements. He criticized anti-Semitism at home. He still does. So it's not a black and white picture. And actually, he was trying to broker peace between Israel and Syria, again, until in 2008, right before Israel attacked Gaza. And that Operation Cast Lead, the so-called Operation Cast Lead on Gaza by Israel, infuriated not just Erdogan, but the majority of Turkish society because of the civilian loss in Gaza. And from that point on, I think Erdogan continually became more critical, and that ultimately led to this dispute with Perez and Davos, and the Mavi Marmara, and the relationship is strained. But I think Israelis would be mistaken if they think that Erdogan is just going after Israel for no reason and only showing hostility. Actually, again, in the past few years, Erdogan has shown a few good signs of goodwill, like sending firefighters to Israel when there was a fire. Erdogan definitely wants to make Turkey more influential in the region. Turkey is certainly reverting back to its historical role, if you will, and finding its place within the Muslim civilization. But Turkey does this, first of all, in a democratic way. Secondly, in a way which does not oppose the West either. Turkey tries to still be the bridge between the West and the East. Turkey still, has a foot in the NATO, which was just, reaffirmed by Turkey's joining of the NATO missile shield, possibly against Iran. That's always discussed. And also, I think Turkey wants to help the Middle East democratize by being an example. And actually, if Israel shows goodwill, like by apologizing for Mavi Marmara, Turkey would be, I think, again, ready to be friends with Israel.
Let's pick up on the
and
point.
maybe help Israel by moderating some radical enemies of Israel, like Hamas.
Mustafa Akyol, let's pick up on the point that you mentioned about Turkey still being a full-fledged member of NATO. There's talk about this Wednesday about missile shields being put up with an eye towards Iran inside of Turkey. We're now getting confirmation, Merve Özdem Öcalan, that the French president, the British prime minister, could be in Libya on Thursday. That's according to sources telling the French news agency. They might even cross paths with Erdogan. Do you think Erdogan's been ahead or behind the curve when it comes to Libya?
Actually, you told about the style, and as well, Mustafa Akyol told about the style of Erdogan. I am a little bit skeptical about this style, and I think that it will be seen by the Western leaders, as Prime Minister, British Prime Minister, and Nicolas Sarkozy, as a mistake in the foreign policy of Turkey towards Middle East. I'm a little skeptical about this new policy towards Israel and towards whole the region. Because
when you say you're skeptical, do you think it's rhetoric or do you think it's a change in policy?
In change in policy, in this region, four important states, four strong states are Turkey, Israel, Iran, and Egypt. And what he said, for example, Recep Tayyip Erdogan during a speech on Dream TV, I think in Egypt, he told about the secularism, about the secular model of Turkey, which has to be welcomed by Egyptian politics, new Egyptian regime. So I think that the foreign policy makers in Turkey know very well that the Turkish model could be an important model for Middle Eastern countries, especially for Egypt, which is an important state in the region, and it is a state in order to balance the power of Israel. So the Turkish model will be a model if it is accepted as a secular, democratic power in this region. So I think this speech, which is not very popular when he is doing his tour in this region, is very well known by the policymakers.
When we come back, we'll pick up on those points and also look at one acid test that Turkey could face sooner than later, which is its neighbor Syria. Stay with us. The France 24 debate continues.
Be part of France 24's experience on the iPhone. Just download the new application. It's free and simple to install. Send your photos and videos to our editorial team and become our eyes on the ground. And it will keep you up to date on international news in real time. France 24 on the iPhone. More coverage than ever before. News accessible anywhere, anytime, in English, French and Arabic. France 24 on the iPhone. You're part of the news.